Okay, so in this example, I'm going to take the files, I'm going to have an input file that has numeric data. I'm going to read the values in from the file, and I'm going to accumulate a total, a running total. This is something that's done frequently in computer science, so you really have to understand the concept. It'll take a number, it'll take a variable, and we'll create a variable. I'll call it total, that'll be set to 0, and then it'll pull the first number in it and add it to total. So it'll be 0 plus the first number, and that'll go back into total. Then it'll pull the second number and it'll add that into the new total, and then the third number. So it keeps adding all the numbers together. So the first thing I'm going to show you here, and this should all look familiar, I have an input file. I just have a variable called number here. It's going to be an integer. I'll put integers in my file. Here's the where I'm opening the input file. So I have to have this input file, but again, I'm going to create it, and I'll show you the process again. Here's my error check. Here's where I read in the number, and I'm just displaying the number back out, and then I close my file. Okay, so I'm going to go through over here. I have this file I used before. You can, it doesn't hurt to leave it here, but if you want, if you let's see, if you right click on it, you can remove it from the project. It does not delete it, it just gets it out of your project. And I'm going to create a new one. So again, on resource files, I'm going to right click, add new item. I'm going to choose utility, text file, and this file I'm going to call numbers. And I don't have to put .txt, it'll add that on. And I'm just going to put some integers in here. And I'm going to put some stuff that I'm going to know the answer to, right? 30, 40, 50. So I'm going to sum these numbers up. So that's going to be 30, 60, 150. So the sum should be 150 when I'm all done. And the idea is to add 10 into our total, which is 0, so we'll have 10. The total becomes 10. Then we're going to add 20 to that, and the total becomes 30. Then we add 30 to that, and the total becomes 60. And then we add 40 to that, and the total becomes 100. And then we add 50 to that, and the total becomes 150. That's the idea. I'm just going to save my input file, and I'm going to come back here. And I'm just going to run this now. I'm not totaling anything. I'm just reading them in and writing them out. So I want to make sure that works. Okay, so that looks good. All right, so earlier in the chapter it talked about running totals, right? So I'm going to do that here. It always has to be initialized to 0 or this will not work. So inside of here, instead of outputting my number, what I'm going to do is I'm going to accumulate a running total. It's going to be total equals total plus whatever number is read from the file. So the first time through it'll be 0 plus the first number is 10, and the total will be 10. Next time through it's going to be total, which is 10, plus the next number in is 20. 10 plus 20 is 30, and that goes back in total, and etc., etc. And when I'm done, I'm going to output what the total is. Now keep in mind, this output statement is after my while loop. I don't want to put it in my while loop or it's going to print out a bunch of times, right? I just want it once. So let's see what happens when I run this. The total of numbers in the file is 150, so that's just what I was expecting. Okay? If we wanted to, let's say, calculate the average of these values, we could make a variable, and averages really should be doubles. So you have to be careful when you're working with integers, right? So I'm going to now calculate the average. Now, the issue I have here in calculating the average is I don't know how many entries are in the file, right? Because I'm using this end of file marker. I mean, I kind of know if I go out here, right? I can see that 5 are out there. So I could say 5. Okay, you got to remember back to if this is an integer and this is a double, I should get the correct answer here. So let's see what happens when I run this. Okay, and the average is 30. Now, if I had different numbers in here, so let's say this guy was 31, for instance. When I run this, you'll see a place after the decimal point. And I could use fixed and set precision and all of that, but I really just want to concentrate, on the loop right now. All right, so maybe I'll just, maybe I'll do this. Okay, and I have to include IOmanip. Okay, so the only problem I have now is that this only works for 5 numbers. So if I come out here and let's say I make it, I add another number, so I put 60. I'm not going to get the right answer because it's going to total up all those values, which is 210, but it's still only going to divide by 5. So sometimes when we're reading these in, we want to have some type of counter that counts how many numbers we have. So every time we go through the while loop, we can increment a counter. So I could declare, let's just call this, I'll call this number counter. And I need to set it to 0. So in here, what's going to happen is each time through the loop, I'm going to increment this number counter. So when I'm done, I'll know how many things are in the loop, like that. And I can divide it by that. And just to be sure, right, I can revise this. The total of the numbers in the file is, I'm just going to maybe put my cout statement before this. This makes more sense to me. There are okay, so this is going to tell me how many are in the file. Here's the total, and now I'm calculating the average. Oops, I don't know why I have plus plus. That's a copy paste error, sorry. Okay, so I'm going to run it again. And here we go. So there are 6 numbers in my file, which there is. I just added one. Then this is 210 is the total of all of those, which it is, and 35 is the average. Okay, this is something that's done over and over and over again in computer science, so you really need to understand this concept. So feel free to watch this exciting video multiple times.